Hi, and welcome to our session on Dell NativeEdge. My name is Philip Burt. I lead the product management team for Dell NativeEdge.
And my name is Allison Beers, and I lead Edge Marketing for Dell. So let's start with a little bit about what's happening at the edge before we dive straight into NativeEdge. So innovation has been accelerating at the edge, and I think we all know that, but let's talk about some of the latest insights we have. What we know is that now 41% of ITDMs and business decision makers are reporting that edge has become central to their strategy. And despite moving to the edge and focusing on it, they're still struggling from the complexities around the edge. In fact, 56% of time is spent dealing with the complexity rather than being able to focus on innovation. And so while there's this great opportunity at the edge, we have customers that are concerned as well because it's a bit of a threat when you know that your competition is also trying to leverage data and insights and can potentially give companies a competitive advantage. So let's talk about where Dell comes in. While we talk to customers, the three main things that continue to come up for them is that they struggle with speed, scale, and security. And so our mission is to help customers simplify their edge. We do that by helping them to generate insights where they need them and generate value from their data. We try to help them consolidate as they expand so that they're developing their edge estate in a really planful way that makes sense as they grow and scale. And finally, we help bring more security to the edge so that our customers can deal with the increased attack surface and have more control over their security so that they can mitigate risk in their business. The edge is a little bit unique as compared to data center. And so the same tools that we use for data center or cloud can't necessarily be applied. While we have a lot of tools in our tool set, the edge has this unique set of challenges. So that ranges from the environmental challenges, because if you think about edge, it's out there in the world. So there could be environmental things like temperature or dust, vibration, small spaces. You also have an incredibly diverse ecosystem of hardware that you're trying to deal with, a lot of it legacy. And then you're working with OT workloads rather than IT workloads. You have that geographically distributed nature of the edge where, as before, you might have been dealing in the data center with thousands of workloads in tens of locations. Now you're dealing with just the opposite problem. You have tens of workloads in thousands of locations, and that's a fundamentally different problem to solve. Additionally, at edge locations, imagine a retail store or a manufacturing floor. It could be a farmer's field. You don't necessarily have qualified IT there to help with deployment or monitoring, management of those infrastructure and applications. So that's a real challenge. And to secure all of that, the edge has a much more distributed footprint. And that means that you have an increased attack surface to try to secure. So you don't want people tampering with those devices, and you need a way to protect them despite the fact that it's not behind lock and key in a data center. And finally, you have proliferation of silos. So the edge has, in most cases, been built somewhat organically over time. Use case by use case, they will identify an issue and then create that infrastructure stack and the right application to address it. But over time, that creates proliferation and complexity, and it becomes really difficult when you have silos of data and operations and also process. And when we come back to it, the edge is really all about trying to use the data, find insights, and be able to harness that knowledge to make better decisions. And if you have all these silos, it's almost impossible to bring that all together in a meaningful way. So I think the question is, what do our customers think? Well, what they've been telling us reflects just that. They've been saying that managing the data generated at the edge from various sensors is really challenging, and that they're struggling to manage all of the disparate hardware, that bandwidth constraints are always a challenge for them, and that ensuring security is a paramount concern. In fact, 76% of lifecycle management time at the edge is spent on routine and repetitive tasks. And in a recent GLG survey, We heard from over 100 customers who were deploying edge infrastructure and telling us that they were spending more than a day up to 2 days after they already have the hardware in their possession to actually patch that and get it into production. So what can we do about it? Our analyst community, and this particular one is from Gartner, has made some recommendations around this. Gartner says that we should organize around a centralized blueprint strategy and that we should design the future edge state based on a platform approach in a synergistic way. And that all makes perfect sense, but it's really hard. And that's why we're not doing this today. We need to reimagine how edge operations are done, to not just handle one of these constraints and challenges at the edge, but to be able to do so for all of them in a simultaneous way. And that's what requires and necessitated a platform to handle that. And so you need a platform that can help customers operate without any skilled, highly paid, highly skilled resources in those edge locations. You need to be able to deploy, onboard, provision hardware and applications in a zero trust fashion. And you need to be able to do so even in the face of connectivity challenges like air-gapped environments or spotty connectivity. And you have to be able to do it with a lower cost of entry. What we know is that in a lot of cases, people want to start small and be able to scale up over time as they scale their edge use cases. And finally, it must be multi-cloud by design, because in a lot of cases, the monitoring or perhaps the AI model training is actually handled in the cloud. And so whether that sits in AWS or another cloud, it must be multi-cloud by design. So what is Dell NativeEdge? Dell NativeEdge is our new edge operations software platform that's going to help our customers securely scale at the edge to manage all of those use cases and edge hardware as well as the applications in a more scalable way. And it has two main functions. There's an infrastructure management component, and then there's the application orchestration. And the idea is that you will be able to securely onboard those devices in a zero-touch way that is zero trust in nature so that you can ensure no one's tampered with that device the whole way from point of production in our manufacturing facilities, the whole way through to transportation and eventually to that point of production. We want to also be able to do it in a way that's multi-cloud connected, and our goal is that this will reduce the complexity, that it is going to enable things to be managed remotely from a single pane of glass so that IT can really be an enabler for the OT business and for new and innovative ways for customers to begin unlocking innovation at the edge. So NativeEdge will help enable our customers to securely scale their edge operations to power any use case across any industry. Our goal is really to help our customers to simplify their edge operations at scale, to help them optimize so that they can continue to use the applications of their choice and leverage the existing infrastructure that they may already have as they continue to modernize, and finally, to be more secure in a zero trust fashion. To take us through that in a little bit more detail, let's hear from Phil.
Thanks, Allie. So diving down another layer and looking at how Dell NativeEdge can actually help you simplify your edge operations at scale. NativeEdge provides a centralized management and orchestration capability that can onboard edge compute devices using a zero-touch approach. So you can actually have edge compute devices drop shipped to your edge location directly. And as long as they have network and power, you can just turn them on. They will boot up, connect to that central orchestration capability, and securely onboard themselves so that they can then be centrally managed. And we'll go into a little bit more detail how we actually do that. In addition to providing that centralized management capability and automation to help you simplify your edge operations, we also help you optimize your investment in the edge by providing an open platform that can operate your IoT applications of choice and your application frameworks of choice, whether you're doing analytics or more straightforward IoT applications. Those are all types of things that you can deploy and run on Dell NativeEdge. And finally, in terms of securing your edge environment with zero trust enabling technologies, we provide very secure encrypted communication between that centralized orchestrator and the edge compute endpoints. And we provide a secure operating system on those edge compute devices that provides a secure environment for you to run your applications with confidence so that you can know that your devices have not been tampered with and that those applications are being run in a secure environment. In terms of how we do this architecturally, I mentioned Dell NativeEdge has a centralized orchestrator. That orchestrator is built to be able to reach out across all of your edge estate and provide consistent lifecycle management of the edge infrastructure, but also to orchestrate and provision applications using a blueprint mechanism from its catalog of applications. And then you can actually keep those applications up to date through that same mechanism. And if you look at how we do that across the edge estate, we are able to do this on the infrastructure management as well as the application orchestration across both our edge compute devices that are enabled by Dell NativeEdge, and we are enabling our Dell IoT gateway devices, several of our PowerEdge server models, as well as one of our Optiplex models. So this is really a versatile operating environment that's provisioned and orchestrated across the infrastructure. And we can orchestrate applications across both those devices that are running that operating environment, but also we can connect to and orchestrate application workloads into external environments that you may already have in your edge environment, but also different systems that you may have in your core data center or in your cloud environments. This allows you to provision applications end to end. In terms of how we onboard devices, Dell is actually innovating a lot in this area, and we have a very unique approach for how we securely onboard devices. We actually embed a certificate in the TPM of the devices during the manufacturing process. And we create a voucher, and that voucher is held by Dell in a voucher management system. And so that when the device is sold to an end customer, that voucher is signed over to that end customer. So as a customer, you can download the vouchers for the devices that you've acquired, load them into your orchestrator, so that when the device is booted up, it actually connects to what we call a rendezvous server, gets the voucher, confirms that it is associated with that device. So that was established during that manufacturing process. And from that point forward, there's a very secure encrypted connection between the orchestrator and the edge compute device. The device is verified to confirm that it hasn't been tampered with. So we do a secure component validation during the boot process. And we ensure that nothing is modified on that device other than through that centralized orchestrator. The operating system that we deploy is actually an immutable operating system that cannot be changed. It can only be lifecycle managed through the orchestrator. So now let's take a look at an actual example. So Ali, I don't know if you could cue this up for us in terms of the scenario.
Yeah, so if you think about any industry, you think about all the different locations that they have and the hardware and applications they may be running. In this example, we'll take a retail use case where they're trying to keep their ice cream cold. From the point that it gets made in the factory through shipping to the point where it arrives on the shelf at your local grocery store and goes home with you. So in this situation, we'll consider that they have 1,700 different locations and that they have about 20 million transactions a week at the store. And they're struggling because they have a lot of refrigeration and freezers throughout their stores. And each one of those needs to be made sure that it's at the right temperature and that it's not broken. And so not only that, but you're tracking the ice cream the whole way through that process because at no point can it warm up beyond a certain temperature. So you can imagine that once you're doing that across 1,700 stores, this becomes incredibly complicated because if you think about all those devices, that's a lot to manage.
It is, and nobody wants mushy ice cream. So, so if you look at how the company would like to actually deploy this kind of solution. The ice cream goes from warehouses where it is refrigerated, it is shipped on refrigerated trucks, and then it's displayed in refrigerated display cases in the stores. All of those locations are things that can be instrumented, places where you can have temperature sensors and you can collect data about what the temperature is of the environment where that is being stored. And so what this company would like to do is they'd actually like to deploy those sensors and have computing devices that are collecting the data, analyzing that data, and then sending it back to a central location for tracking and for that information to be logged and audited. Now, how they would typically deploy this using their processes today, and this is something that maybe they've done for other IoT use cases, but in this case, if they were using their traditional process, they would send a skilled technician with an edge compute device and the appropriate hardware to the various locations where they have warehouses, to the various locations where they have their trucks coming in and they outfit them for whatever use cases, and to the individual stores. And so a technician would have to go in, install the device. They would have to actually provision the software onto that device, do all of the configuration, and get it set up to actually operate. This is a very time-consuming process, and one of the things that they would note is that may be something that's feasible for a single store, maybe a single warehouse. But once they consider that they have 1,700 stores, and they would have to use that same manual process of doing a truck roll, bringing the actual edge compute devices out to those environments and getting them set up manually, that really becomes something that's infeasible. And not only is it very difficult in terms of the initial deployment, it also then becomes extremely difficult to maintain over time and to manage over time. And what they would find is that environment is then out of date. It becomes a security risk because the software is not being patched and updated. And they would end up in a situation where they have siloed manageability because this is one use case implemented with one set of dedicated hardware. They'd like to do something different, something better. And this is where Dell NativeEdge can enable them to do things differently. With Dell NativeEdge, they can actually deploy edge infrastructure to all of the locations where it needs to be deployed using that zero-touch provisioning and onboarding process that I described. So those devices can be drop shipped to the individual warehouses or the retail stores or to the trucking company that maintains the trucks that are used to ship these things. As soon as they're booted up, they'll go through that onboarding process. They'll be provisioned with that secure OS. And then they can be centrally managed by the company, the retail store, and their administrators so that they can keep those systems up to date. They can also use Dell NativeEdge as the means to deploy that cold chain monitoring application to those individual edge devices and keep that application up to date. And they can do this across all of their 1,700 stores. Each additional store that they have doesn't increase the amount of overhead of doing this. They can push the application out to them consistently, in a batch operation.
Sounds like a game changer. It's kind of amazing that they keep our ice cream cold today.
Yeah, and it has an impact on the bottom line. So
yeah, that's for sure. I mean, when you think about food spoilage or even just the risk that a company can face from something like that, and that's just one example. So we actually took that fictional example and plugged it into an ROI model to see what the impact is, because it really adds up when you consider all of the time savings and the efficiencies that can be gained from being able to remotely manage in a more centralized, secure way. And so what we find is that not only do you save money from the actual deployment and onboarding on day zero, but also over time from a lifecycle management perspective, you save a significant amount of money. And even something like stopping and not needing to send out that skilled technician to an edge location can actually reduce the number of truck rolls. So it has an environmental impact as well with the reduction in carbon emissions from the actual transportation of those goods. And so one of our customers actually shared some insights as well from an ISV perspective about how it helped them.
Yeah, absolutely. So Eaton is a fantastic partner of ours. They've got some excellent software capabilities for managing power. And this is something that has been critical for a lot of our customers. And they have an application called BrightLayer. And one of the things that we've been talking to them about, and they're very excited about, how NativeEdge could enable BrightLayer to be much more easily distributed to their customers, and something that could run on Dell NativeEdge and be something that could be part of the catalog that customers have access to. So we've been actually working very closely with them as part of our Edge design program. And so we've been giving them some previews of what we're doing, and they've been providing some feedback and input. And so it's a game changer for them as an ISV, and it's going to be a game changer for their customers because now they will have a consistent, secure operating environment that they can easily deploy and manage and maintain, and use that as the means to get that application deployed across their edge infrastructure.
Makes so much sense. And I think too, when you think about our customers and just being able to have both off-the-shelf and homegrown applications in an application catalog with blueprints, securely onboarded, it really makes a big difference. So
Yeah, absolutely.
So with NativeEdge, we help our customers to simplify their edge operations at scale. We can help them to optimize their edge investments and do it in a planful way as they grow and plan out their edge environment. And they can secure with a zero trust capabilities. Thanks so much for your time today. We really enjoyed talking to you about NativeEdge. And if you'd like to learn more, visit us at dell.com/NativeEdge.